Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures. If you haven't heard it before, let me remind you again that Friday is my favorite day of the week. And you know why? Because I get to bring to you yet another obscurity in literature. That's right, Fridays are always book days, because that was the best day of the week growing up, because that's when the book orders always came in, or at least my teachers would always pass them out. And so instinctually, I have always just related Fridays to books, which is why we always do this. Anyway, this is Fate Grand Order Material 10. Yes, not X. This is 10 as in Roman numerals. And that's not all of the books there are in this series. I've mentioned many times on this channel that I've been a fan of, relative fan, or as my son would say, a fake fan, because I don't, go all in on this stuff. But I mean, you could look at like my download history on my phone and see that I've had Fate there for quite a few years at this point. And I've always enjoyed the character designs. The story, I can take it or leave it at times. It's got some cool stuff. We won't admit which singularity we're still on at this point for fear of embarrassment. But I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the major servants, at least in the games. In all the other extra multimedia stuff, not so much. But it's the character designs that I've always been a fan of. So, not a whole lot to look at. Except that's because this is a nice little book cover that's a pain in the butt to actually get the book back in, because you can already see it's getting all banged and bent up. And then you can see just how massive this book is. And as I said, this is book 10. And if you play a lot of Fate, that blade should look very familiar to you, or it is Castor Artoria's. But yeah, that's a whole different story. So just to give you a quick glimpse, this is page 398. These are phat books. They're not as big as a traditional comic or a traditional art book, but they are jam-packed with art. They're also full of all of these stories and info, of which you can also usually find online. So take a big ol' swig of coffee while I'm trying to do this. And what's interesting is they often have little bonus things thrown in here. So usually, on average, you have about 10 to 15 servants for the most part, and then others. There are spoilers if you haven't seen certain things, and I'll give you some good headway if you're planning to get into it. But it is nice to see like the actual designs of some of the event costumes. I want to say this is from when Voyager showed up, wasn't it? You also do get most of the designer names. Some of them look familiar. So as you can see here, we have a breakdown of all of the important stats for Space Ishtar, which was a limited version of Ishtar. And then we get into all of the various skills, which I'm guessing if you've played the game enough, you probably already know how most of that stuff works, right? These are actually the quotes, I believe, that they use. I'm not 100%. And then usually all of the various bits of fluff that you get upon servant ascension, which is a fair amount of story. I'll have to go back and look at some of this with somebody who actually can speak the language. So let's get into the nitty gritty. So you do have like the actual art of the various stages of each character. But then this is what I'm here for, is you actually start to get into the real particulars of the designs of the characters. A lot of the really rough drafts, how everything looks from every angle. This especially is cool to me, is to see what they're thinking in terms of the weapon designs. One of my favorites in one of the other volumes. I don't own every volume, and I think at this point, volume 15 is coming out about the time I'm probably putting this up. I know 14's already out because I've got it sitting here on the shelf. If you guys are really interested in seeing more of these books, I can absolutely post some more of them. I noticed that there aren't a whole lot on YouTube, actually. So, seeing some of this stuff is kind of nice to see. I always thought that was like her Calamity Jane outfit, but it's nice to see the gun designs, the holster designs, how everything works here. various weapons that show up in different attacks. Wasn't that from her Noble Phantasm? I don't even remember. But again, it's just nice to see all of this stuff kind of getting figured out. The layout of everything. And some characters, and what, we're at like almost... That's from her Noble Phantasm. That looks familiar. Almost 50 pages, 40-something pages, over 30 pages of just Space Ishtar here. Some of the characters, you get all the little breakdowns of everything that they've ever owned. Some of the characters, not as much. Calamity Jane here. Again, it's really nice to see like these really rough designs of how they design and figure everything is going to work. You get all the various outfits, the stages. You can see her stars there. Again, breakdowns of all the weapons, how they hold them, how they reload them. So a lot of thought gets put into this stuff. Astolfo and her very maid-like outfits. Santa, Nightingale. Would have been nice to see more of how her weapon works. One of my favorites, Orion, or as he's known in the game, Super Orion. And what's interesting, I never realized he actually had all the knives on his body there, or just all the equipment in general. I had forgotten about that. I'm used to the Stage 3 version of him. I always think it's funny for as, you know, notorious, I guess, or infamous Fate is for its female protagonists in various states of disrobement. There's some really cool male characters, too. Some really well-designed ones. I do like the fact that we get to see the upgrades for his bow as well. That guy never really did much for me. I'm just going to skip forward. Okay, this is the one that pisses me off for Europa. I think Europa was one of my first 5-star servants that I got maxed out. I mean, I've always used Okito Soji, the alter ego one. She was my favorite. But the main thing Europa is always using, there's no cow with her. She's got the big mechanical cow, you know, going back to the Legend of Zeus and her. But then all of her attacks are always done with Talos. She's got, like, the big mech Talos that it's part of her Noble Phantasm. It's part of, like, almost all of her attacks. And he's nowhere in sight in this book. I can't remember her name because I can't read those kanji. Guan Yu Fei or something like that. I know I have her, and I know I've got her. Well, I haven't grailed her, but she's... This is another annoying one. I always try to figure out where she kept all these instruments. Like, you can see she's got all of the various flutes and stuff, but then where are they stored? And as she evolves, she gets more and more of them. We kind of can see, I guess they're like just bundled up or something. Her Noble Phantasm form there. See, they're just kind of like stuck in there. I would have thought that there would have been a little bit more ideas on where that was. Seisho Nagon. That's her cool girl street kid mode. Again, we get a lot of pages dedicated to her, but then again, she's got a lot of stuff going on in terms of costumes as well. So that's not all that surprising. You know, trying to figure out the patterns, the colors, and everything. My man Odysseus. I loved Odysseus. Probably because he is just a tokusatsu hero in disguise. And when you get him all maxed out there, I mean, he really looks like some kind of postmodern metal hero. So it's kind of cool to see all of his actual design work. The various... I mean, there are differences between the various layers of his outfits. But then, I'm griping about Europa's Talos not being there, but then we get his Trojan Horse. Yes, this is the Trojan Horse. And we even get a breakdown of how it transforms into horse mode, where it launches from his Trojan white base like a Gundam. You can find it online. If you don't believe me, look for Odysseus Noble Phantasm. You can see it launching off there. Dios Croy. Getting quite a few pages dedicated to the twins here. Canis. Every now and then we get some buff girls in Fate. Or at least that don't look the same. Which is funny because I always have her in Barghest. Barghest is in 14th. And then Romulus Quirinus in his full-on Saint Seiya Roman garb. Because everybody knows that the Roman emperors wore the gold cloths. Come on, look at this. This is ridiculous. I love it. And that's the thing I love about Fate. You have just such ridiculous interpretations of historical characters, fictional characters, what have you. Again, getting a good breakdown of how everything works there. Voyager in his outer space prince mode. Which book has Van Gogh? Van Gogh is a weird one. Yes, that was a T-Rex you saw, and I was kind of hoping we would... I can't remember her name. It doesn't say in English anywhere. I don't have her, unfortunately, and I tried. But as she gets powered up, she becomes more human, and then you get this crazy dinosaur hybrid version of her. You can see kind of a breakdown of how the body looks, which I figured they would have. I was hoping to see something on the dinosaur form, but nope. Again, kind of a cool little breakdown of the patterns of the kimono. I can't remember. She's like the old ancient Japanese girl, if I remember correctly. Castor Artoria. You get all of her various outfits. But again, that's kind of nice because she's got some pretty significant differences between each of her stages, and you get to see all of the various weapon designs. Her blade from the cover. For as little as I play, it's funny that she is one of the servants that everybody always uses of mine. Huh. Getting into the whole blade design. Parts, components. Did we like miss a page here? We just jump right into her. So this is getting into some of the interesting stuff at the end of the book here. We've got like the other characters, various people that show up in various special scenes. This looks familiar. I don't remember which one. Is it from the Voyager's story? I don't remember now. The Avatar of Artemis. Yeah, we do get into some of the god stuff. Good old Zeus. Actually, I like Zeus's design. I like most of the god designs, I gotta say, in Fate. Again, it's kind of nice to see the actual breakdown of how the artwork looked. Demeter. Aphrodite. Some of these also quite nicely have boss designs in them as well. So if you haven't really seen these, when did this come out? 2022. So fairly recent, but like I said, there's already plenty more. The big catch and the big frustration is trying to figure out which book you have and what's going to be in it. These do tend to show up outside of Japan fairly regularly. I'd say probably just due to the popularity of Fate across whatever media form people consume it. So you shouldn't have too much hassle finding these for relatively decent prices. If you do buy them new, they often have like a little sticker on the plastic shrink wrap detailing who's in the book, so that does help. But if you're like me and you have multiples of these and trying to figure out which one is which and who's in what, it does become a chore, and especially considering these are usually on average 300 to 400 pages, that does become a bit of a needle in the haystack search. So they're pretty cool books if you're really into the Fate designs. I mean, I'd say these are a little bit cooler than like all the various Dojin books out there and artwork. I mean, there's a lot of that too, but for me, this is really where it's at. So if you're curious about how these characters are designed and getting into the nitty-gritty details, I think these are pretty cool books. And like I said before, if you guys want to see more of them, I do have a fair amount, so I can just post random ones, maybe not every week in a row because it's going to take a while, but we absolutely can be posting those if people are interested. So anyway, with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities in Miniature saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.